Welcome to the autosportradio.com 2021 show. I'm your host, Don Kay. We are coming to you once again from the Grant King Race Shops at 8155 Crawfordsville Road, and it's where the Top Gun race car is being maintained. So if you're in the area sometime, stop by, take a tour of the place, and you'll be impressed with the collection of cars they have here. Today's show is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, the SVRA and the Reborn Trans Am Series, McGilvery's Pub and Eatery and Speedway. Dr. Jack Miller and his wife, Dr. Liz Lewis, have a phenomenal dental practice, the Indy Dental Group. If you need help, it's the place to go. Trust me when I say it. We're also brought to you by VP Insurance, located at 5004 16th Street in Speedway, and our computer guru, Steve Freeze, who now has an office at 549 Fleming Street, just off of West Washington. And if you need a problem, you need it repaired, you can give him a call, tell him what you got. If you can't get there, he'll come to you. Number is 317-938-1177. That's Steve Freeze. And don't forget, you want all the information on what's going on, other than from us here, you can go to Trackside Online. Go to tracksideonline.com and subscribe to it. You'll get all the PR from the teams, get all the information on what's going on. You'll love it, and it's very inexpensive. So check it out, tracksideonline.com. My guest today is a gentleman who hasn't been here in a while. The first time he came, he was a young single guy just bouncing around town. The next time he came in, he was married. Now he's been gone for a while. Now he has 2 kids. He is the chief of staff for all departments in IndyCar, and a guy that I really enjoy talking to. Please welcome Mr. Mark Sibla. Mark, it's been a long time.
It has, but I'm happy to be here.
You're not all beat up with 2 kids, so apparently you're doing well.
I think my wife's doing well. I think she's doing the vast majority of the work. She's doing a phenomenal job, and they're great. I love them.
Now you came here from Mid-Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
You're a graduate. You got your degree originally from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. And I might add, I had to look this up. You graduated cum laude. I had to look up what that meant. I'm used to down to the bottom. I didn't know what it meant. But you were an NCAA team All-American in 1996. Mm-hmm. You graduated in 2000. Did you go from there to Mid-Ohio?
No, I actually, in 2000, that was the .com, heyday, right? Uh-huh. And they were popping up everywhere. And at that point in time, my degree was both in business management as well as a film minor, right? I wanted to go into film production and be kind of on the business side of film. And so I started at a company called iNoise.com, and they sold what they termed production media assets. So think of sound effects and 3D models and any kind of those elements that could be transmitted digitally. And it was quite an experience. It did not last long. It was about 6 months. But it was a really interesting place to work and interesting experience. And then once it ceased to exist, I moved on more towards the corporate world and Prentice Hall Publishing. And while it was a great place to work, I just realized that I need to do something that I'm passionate about, right? And textbook sales were not a passion of mine. And so I went back to grad school, and while in grad school, I got the internship at Mid-Ohio, and that was how I got started in motorsports.
And of course, your grad school was the Ohio State University. Now, you didn't play football.
I did not.
You didn't play basketball.
Thank goodness for them. Nor did I play that. Yes, no, I didn't.
So you simply spent 2 years studying, and then went to Mid-Ohio. And from what the people I talked to prior to Kim and owning it, you startled them with what you were able to accomplish and bring to them that they really hadn't thought about. True Sports hadn't thought about some of the things that you came there with and really helped them immensely.
Yeah, it was such a great place to work, right? Michelle Truman was the owner at the time. And her father had obviously purchased it and made so many enhancements to it. And it was the opportunity to come in with some of the things I had learned, whether that was, previously at a .com or in college or grad school, and say, hey, how do we look at this differently? How do we make the most of the resources that we have, the history that we have, and use that as we go out and try to drive revenue to the facility? And so it was a great way to learn about the sport. I mean, you truly did a little bit of everything, right? It was sponsorship, sales, but also retention, working with partners, but then jumping in on, operational things if they needed assistance there. They have a driving school that's very, very popular. And so getting a chance to see that, how that operated, and the way that it was set up, it was a great experience.
And somehow someone came knocking on your door from the Indy Racing League. How did that happen, and why did you move?
Yeah, it's interesting because what happened is, Mid-Ohio was a great place, and I very much enjoyed it, but I also realized I had kind of moved up as much as I could at the organization. And, at the time I said, if there's one place that I would want to be, where would it be? And this is right after the merger between, at the time, the Indy Racing League and Champ Car. And I thought, well, it would absolutely be with IndyCar. And so I was actually the one that reached out.
Oh, really?
So I did. I had a contact because Mid-Ohio the year prior had an IndyCar event. And I had a contact on the sales side. She was on client services. And I said, I'm sure you never get any openings there, but if you do, I would always be interested. And about 2 weeks later, I got a call that said, hey, we've got this new opportunity. It's a sales opportunity, but it's working with the teams that are involved with IndyCar. Would you be interested in interviewing for it? And I said, absolutely, and that's how it started.
Well, fortunately for IndyCar and for the race teams, you came on board, because I talked to you right after you got here, if you recall, if you can remember back that far. I have trouble. I had to make notes. And there was a problem in the sales working with teams, as you were aware, and a lot of people were aware, and I was aware of. And you came in and changed the whole outlook of everything, realizing, in my opinion, it's great to have a series that's got all kinds of sponsors. If you don't have race teams, what are you going to do?
Right.
And you directed help to get sponsors for teams, which is what they were looking to you for anyway, because you had all the information sponsors are looking for. And you've just gone up from there. I mean, you've been involved in all departments, and now you're the Secretary of State for all divisions with IndyCar. So that means for every meeting there is that goes on in IndyCar, you're there.
Well, I appreciate that. I think going back to the team business development role, I was the individual that maybe was front and center with the teams, but I think it really came from people like Terry Angstad at the time. Some of the folks that were involved in it, Brian Barnhart and others, saying, this is something we need to focus on. And I agreed. I mean, it only made sense as you looked at the economy of the sport. You've got to take care of your stakeholders, right? And teams are critical to the success. And so the key thing for me was, how do I develop these relationships, right? How do I not only, I can say all day long what I'm going to do, but I've got to show them what I'm going to do, right? And it was focused on building trust with those guys. And so it wasn't just me, it was a multitude of folks. And I'm glad it was a positive experience. And yeah, it has led to other roles within the organization. And as you mentioned, Chief of Staff now and that position.
Well, you've worked your way up, so you know all of the inner workings of what needs to happen to put things together. And I can say that I recommended you when you got here and when you were doing what you came in here to do, which was help the teams. And somebody called me, who do I see now? Because I need help. And I said, no. I said, trust me. And they called me back and said, you're right. He did exactly what he said he would do, and he helped us, and it's worked. So
that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Chief of Staff, what does that entail you doing now besides almost everything? You got to be involved in almost everything that goes on.
Well, it's a combination of things. It's not certainly everything, but I think the key things is it's looking at the actual business side of the series, right? So think of things like the supplier agreements that we have, with partners like Dallara and Cosworth. You look at, and it's interesting with that, right? So we talked about team health earlier, right? And I was originally looking at it from the revenue side. How do you drive more revenue to these teams? And that's still certainly a focus. But now it's also how do you eliminate costs for these teams, right? So when we're going into these supplier agreements, how do we work with them in a mutual way to drop the cost to the teams? And that's been something that Jay Fry has been very adamant about, because he comes from a team ownership perspective, certainly. And so, that's a big element of it, right? How do these supplier agreements that we're working on, how does that impact the holistic sport, if you would? Financials, right? So looking at our budgets, ensuring that we're staying within those as we go to make capital expenditures, so invest in new technologies and, across the board, or maybe operational elements that we need to maintain, the professional status that we're at. And it's also a lot of communication between the different departments, right? I came from the commercial side. I sit predominantly now on the competition operations side. But knowing both sides, there's topics that will come up that you'll say, you know what, so-and-so's not involved in this now, but they certainly need to be, right? Because it could have this benefit, it could have this impact, whatever that may be. And so a lot of times it's being a liaison, and it's making sure information's transferred, right? That we don't have silos just sitting in different areas and information's not getting communicated. And it's a variety of things, and then certainly it's, ensuring Jay is a very busy individual. He's got a lot of big things to worry about. And so how can I help there, right? How can I make sure that if there's elements that can be handled with him not having to divert his time to those and can focus on maybe more high-level things, how do I help there?
Well, I think what he brought to the table is having been an owner in another series.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding, because I followed that series in the early 70s.
Yeah.
They didn't care what you thought as a team owner. They couldn't care less. And I think he probably had the time when he'd have a question and nobody cared. Where he's completely the opposite. He'll stop and talk to anybody. If you've got an idea, you've got a thought, he'll even stop and talk to me, which I don't have many ideas that would help him any, but he does communicate. And the other thing that I've heard from members that go to meetings when Roger is there, he'll listen to anybody as well. He doesn't care if you sell pencils. You might have an idea we hadn't thought of. He wants to hear from everyone.
Yeah.
So that's got to open a lot of doors and make it a lot easier for you, because these ideas can come in that maybe you even hadn't thought of and go, oh.
Absolutely.
And then you implement them.
Yeah, I think, what Jay and certainly Roger, both deserve a tremendous amount of credit, is their ability to take time, right, and to listen. And sometimes that results in, to your point, great ideas, great concepts. Sometimes that results in something that maybe can't be implemented, but an explanation can be provided. And then somebody goes, oh, okay, well, that makes sense, right? Now I understand, right? Jay does a phenomenal job of, not just sending off an email or something like that. He'll pick up the phone, call somebody, what do you think about this? This is what we're thinking about decision-wise. Does this make sense? Are there things we're not thinking about? So when we go to teams, we kind of laugh about it now, whether it's a team manager meeting or a team owner meeting, 95% of what we're going to talk about, they already know, right? Which is a good thing, right? They're not coming in and then we're suddenly saying, oh gosh, we're changing this on you, right? Or this is going to happen or whatever. It's then more a discussion of, are we all good with this? Or the majority of similar belief and so forth. So he deserves a lot of credit, and certainly to your point, Roger, he does a great job of soliciting input and listening. One
of the things that impressed me about Jay when he took over as president was when he says he's going to do something, he does it.
Absolutely.
We're going to have a new car in 2 years, and in 2 years, there it was.
Yeah.
That's happened before. We're going to have it, and 3 years later, it hadn't happened yet. So he has done so that the team and sponsors can plan for that. They say, well, in 2 years, here's what we're going to do. It's probably going to cost more, whatever difference, so we got to plan for it now, which makes it a lot easier than the last 10 minutes saying, oh, by the way.
Absolutely. Two things I think related to that. One, he has what he calls a 5-year rolling plan, right, that we're always working on. So we'll even kind of hold the years that have passed just so teams can see, right, what's transpired. And we'll say, here's what we're looking at in the next 5 years. So that's one element of it. And that's immensely helpful for them, right, because they've got to plan budgets, right? It's also immensely helpful for those that are looking to come in, and I think you'll see or have seen with his involvement, we've got new folks that are either looking to come in or have come in and participated. Certainly the folks Top Gun are a great example. The other thing we always try to do, going back a little bit to the supplier agreements, is if something is going to be phased out, right, something's going to be obsoleted, we have a minimum of a year notice to the teams that we tell them. Because we don't want to go to them and say, hey, you know what, next May we're going to make a complete change to this component, and everything that you bought in August, September is obsolete. I mean, that's just, it's unfair, and it's not business savvy. So that's something that we always look at as far as, at a minimum, it's a year. Sometimes it's longer than that. Hey guys, in 2 years we're going to make this change to this component, right? So I think it's that philosophy again of looking out for everybody, and that's the purpose of the series, right? It's to look out for the stakeholders and to certainly create rules and regulations, but at the same time look at how do you make all prosper in this.
Well, one of the things that's upcoming, and I think in 23, is that new generator is going to be on the car. I don't quite understand exactly all there is to know about it, so I'm going to see if I can't get Jay to come in and explain exactly what it's about.
Yeah.
But, the things that were originally said, we're not going to have a halo, we're not going to do it. Well, it turned out that works quite well. Although, fortunately, it hasn't had to save anybody's life at the time, but it's there, and it's deflected a few things. They're always looking ahead, and the safety of the cars, the drivers I talked to, are you concerned with the speeds now going up? Are you worried about in the car? And they said no, because the car is safe, and it's always evolving and making it better. And when the fans in the grandstand see a car hit a wall and all these pieces fly, they go, oh, no, it was designed for that. That's what it's for. So rather the car than the driver get hurt. The things that are being done with the series, I think looking forward, this coming year, they've got a problem. Some of the tracks don't have enough pit area because they're looking, 27, 28 possible cars, could be 29 possibly full-time. So they've got that problem, and they're going to now readjust the qualifying because they've got more cars. So they got to figure out a way to make it competitive and fun and interesting for the fans to watch and something to accomplish. So do you get involved in that aspect of the series?
Yeah, I just came from a meeting, and that was one of the topics. Was the increased car count, which is one of your key indicators of health and success, right? Which is a great thing. And there's a couple different options that we have. I mean, I think the one thing that we're very confident in is we're not looking to send anybody home, right? And so how do you approach that with certain venues where maybe the pit lane is already a bit tight? And there's a couple different options. Some is looking at the actual layout, some is making some adjustments on lengths and things like that. But I can tell you it's top of mind and a good problem to have.
No question, I think. And judging from the Nielsen latest report on worldwide viewership of the series, it's growing and growing quite substantially. And to me, part of that is a guy like Romain Grosjean coming in, very popular with Americans.
Absolutely.
And he's been very good with. I watched him when they had the Grand Prix, and I was watching, and fans come, and he'll talk to him. And with him coming and Felix and Marcus coming in from Formula One, the European eyes are starting to really, and there's a couple of new ones I think coming, at least one, possibly two. So the European eyes are starting to go. So it's a worldwide series, unlike, I don't think there's any other series or tour. I mean, even the golf tour, PGA, great, but it's not. I don't think it's worldwide like IndyCar is, and is growing rapidly.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is just really makes you feel good is when a driver like Romain or others come into the series and they start to talk about how much fun they're having, right? It's just, and another one I would throw in there is Jimmy Johnson, right?
Yeah.
And they come in and so many of them will say, my gosh, these guys are all talking to each other, right? Yeah. We were just on the track and now they're saying, hey, stop over at my motorhome because we're going to have a cookout, right? Or we're going to, do this or do that. And the camaraderie, I think, amongst all the drivers in the teams and so forth is just something that it's so great to see when drivers, whether it's from another series or from Europe or other parts of the world, come in and start to tell you, man, I'm having a blast with it, right? All series, whether it's Formula One or NASCAR or whomever, have many benefits, right? And many unique attributes. And I think one of them that we have as IndyCar is a great atmosphere for those competitors. And it's always great when somebody comes in and you just see that they're truly having fun with it.
And that's true. I mean, the guys I've talked to, they said, this. First off, I go back to this all the time. The first time that Romain tested at Barber, I think in the first corner he looped the car. Mm-hmm. And they brought him and said, what was that? He said, I didn't realize you drive these cars. Formula One, you don't drive them. They stick to the track and they've got power, you got traction control, so you just steer it. He said, well, here you got to drive it. And he said, this is fun.
Yeah.
He's really enjoying, and I made the mistake talking to Mark one day. I said, any given weekend you got 10 or 12 guys can win a race. He said, oh, no, there's 18 or 20 that possibly can win. Yeah. And these guys appreciate the fact that instead of being a mid-pack and that, or worse, they come in here and they can win races. Yeah. And have. Yeah. And do.
Absolutely. Absolutely they do.
And I think part of the reason that the eyes are coming to IndyCar is the fact that it is so competitive. Yeah. Extremely competitive. Yeah. Now, I know Roger has mentioned that he would like to bring in more ovals now. They're saying, when I say, we got 2 ovals, yeah, but there's the same place, the same weekend. I hope they go back to Richmond. It was on the schedule in 2020. It was pulled off, and it's not back. Is there any chance? Are they talking about?
Yeah, I think there's a few ovals, right? And I think there's a few venues that are always in the mix, right? And I know that there is, certainly a group, and listen, I'm a huge oval fan, so, there's certainly an audience that wants to see that grow. And, while maybe we didn't add, 2, 3, 4 in this year, I think seeing a place like Iowa come back on the schedule is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And, there's a lot, it's interesting, there's so much that goes into scheduling that I think I had no idea until really getting closer to it. I mean, you've got everything from, the venues themselves. What available dates do they have? Do those conflict with other dates on your schedule? Do they conflict with other things maybe even taking place in that region, right? And so you've got that element. You've got the element of your TV partner, right? How does it work for them? How does it work for the logistics and operations of the teams? You don't want to head way out west and way back east and and you got to be cognizant of that. That's costly. And so there's all these different elements that go into it. And so I think oftentimes it takes a bit of movement and a bit of change to get some of those things on. I certainly think that you'll see a couple additional ovals added in the future. Where and when, remains to be seen, but I think it's certainly a focus.
Does Roger want to go as many as 20 events in a year?
I don't think he does, and certainly, I don't want to speak for Mr. Penske by any means, but I haven't heard that as an initiative, right? I haven't heard, hey, we need to get, to this high number of events. I think probably about the number we're at's good. So then, do you start looking at, what do we have on the schedule that we like? What don't we have that we want to add? And how does that work out? And I think you go from there.
Well, did you ever go to Richmond?
I have been to Richmond, yes, and I loved it. The first year I started, I went to the Richmond event.
Well, I used to work with Mark Janes.
Okay, yeah.
Up in turn 3.
Yeah.
And he would broadcast, and he'd call what's up front, and I watched in the back. And the last time we went there, I said to him, because the crowd was starting to come around into turn 3 and down into turn 2. I said, another year of this, and we're going to have to find somewhere else to sit because the crowd was growing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, poof, it went away.
Yeah.
And I know there was a lot of excitement when it was announced that it would be back last year and didn't make it. So I hope that Roger will say maybe 18 or 19 is a limit so that they'll fit back in.
Yeah, no, I think it's certainly in the consideration set, and I understand that the test we had there was very good too, right?
Yeah.
That's always an important factor in it. I haven't been to the venue since I made several upgrades to the garage area and other portions of the facility, so I've heard nothing but good things on those.
Well, we go down there, I'd wander around the parking lot or behind the grandstand and say, what do you think? God, these cars are fast. I said, really?
Yeah.
You're not as fast as that? Oh, they're much faster. Are you kidding? How do they do it? I said, I don't know, sit in the stands and watch.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch.
It is fun.
What's next for you, if anything? Is this, to you hit what you went to school and studied and learned, this fits for you perfect?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think that's the answer in terms of, the ability to be involved in so many facets of the sport. I think is huge, right? It's something that, even this morning, right? I go from a competition operations meeting to talking about driver appearance agreements to a multitude of different things, and so I think it's that diversity of topics that just really makes this position a lot of fun. I think there's probably still opportunities to grow within the position, new things to learn and do. I think that's the other thing. I feel every day like I'm learning something new. I'll sit down with our engineering staff and they'll start talking about stuff, and I'm like, man, I've got a lot to learn. So it's great. So the position's fantastic. And yeah, we'll see. Wherever they need me, I think is the right answer.
Well, the interesting part is, the diversity of what you do. You learn something, as you said, new every day, and they've got some really good people in the engineering department and the media department. SJ came from Nike, which is no slop operation.
I never heard of it until she came to our organization.
And there's certainly some good people stealing from the Indianapolis area, the sports director from the ABC Channel 6 locally, the vice president of communications. That was terrible. I don't watch it anymore because he's not there.
He's a good guy. I love working with him.
Oh, he's terrific. And he knows the sport. He loves the sport. When you came in, was this a job or God, I love motorsports. I love racing. I've been a fan for all of my 17 years on Earth or whatever.
It's interesting because I can remember as a child, my dad would take me to a variety of races. I grew up just north of Columbus, Ohio. So the two places that we went to at the time, one was a sports car event, the Columbus, I think it was 500 at that time. It was a Grand Prix Event City race. And then the other one was the Spring Nationals NHRA event, and so we would go there. So the NHRA event was always at the end of school, so I'd always miss a day of school, third grade, fourth grade, so on and so forth. And I always joke that, I'll never remember what I missed, in that day of class, but I certainly remember the motorsports part. And it's kind of funny, it led to this. I think it was a passion and it was an interest, and watching the 500 on TV, it seemed like this, distant, far-off land where these amazing things happened. But I never thought that you could have a career in racing. I never thought that those types of jobs really existed. I don't know why. Maybe it was just at the age and so forth. So, I think when I got older, it was something when I was in North Carolina that was certainly, of renewed interest. You heard a lot certainly at that time about stock car racing there. But when I got the opportunity when I saw the internship at Mid-Ohio, I thought, man, what a great way to see if that passion, right, aligns with my business background and things that I think I'm good at, and it seems like it has. So very fortunate, to work in an industry where, people come to the product because they want to have fun, right? They want to whether it's escape for a couple hours and watch a race or get passionate about a driver or whatever it may be, this isn't something that people have to buy. It's something that people want to buy. And I think being involved in anything, I think that's actually why initially I got involved with film, was you're involved with something that people want, right? And just that experience is a different one, and it's a great one.
Well, I got to say, to be involved in a sport that has a single day largest sporting event in the world.
That's a big deal too.
And invite all your friends, the 350, 400,000 people all at one time in one day, and the interest that people have to come here. Also, how people fall in love with a driver. They you know, and I've seen it, probably you have, when their driver gets hit by somebody and put out of the race, they're ready to go down to the fan that's cheering for them and beat the hell out of them for that. They really get wrapped up into this, which is interesting. And according, I talked to Doug about a month ago, and he said the ticket sales are doing very well for next year.
Yeah, it's great.
And hopefully they're going to be able to open full house, which I'm suspecting they will, or planning on now anyway.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, you're talking about driver appearances. Is there a requirement? Does a series require that a driver make X number of appearances somewhere?
Yeah, there's a breakdown, right? There's a breakdown in regards to whatever the event may be, right? So if it's we'll call it a media related or an entitlement partner obligation or things like that, there is that commitment. I think we've really tried to work with the drivers to make it something that doesn't feel like a commitment, right? That feels more like a partnership in how do we promote the sport or how do we promote an event. And so I think, between Jay and certainly SJ now being involved and Dave First and others, it's how are we using those, right? Because we want a driver to go to an event or go to an experience and walk away and say, man, I'm really glad I did that, right? It's going to have this great impact on this event, or man, I was able to talk about our sport and I think it hit a good audience. And so while that commitment does exist, I think it's more of a guideline, right? You get some drivers that'll say, hey, use me whenever you need, right? Yeah. Just let me know. And I also think that's an area where communication with the team marketing reps, team PR reps has gotten even better about, hey, we've got something coming up. Does a driver have an interest? They may, it may be an event that's associated with another sport, and somebody says, oh gosh, man, Graham Rahal's a huge hockey fan, right? Yeah. He wants to go. So I think while it does, I think a lot of it is just more of a partnership than anything on those.
Well, to me, that's very critical, because when I used to go to all the events, I don't anymore, but I would go at night and turn on television, listen to sports and how talked about it, and they'd have a driver on, or the sportscaster had gotten a ride in a two-seater, and he got and gushed about how exciting it was, and how he thought he was going to hit the wall, and by golly, he didn't. He got out of the car and walked away. Yeah. So there's a lot of things, and I agree. There's a lot of the drivers, because I ask them, do you mind? No. If it helps the sport, I mean, if we don't have people in the stands, what are we going to do?
Agreed.
And they're all, for the most part, as far as I know, and I'm sure Romain is one of, he's available here. Yeah. He probably was more than happy, and people enjoy talking to him.
Oh,
Same
really
with Marcus.
Do. Absolutely.
And Felix, I mean, they're all, and Jimmy
Pato
particularly.
is another one. And then, you've got folks, like Joseph and Alexander, that they're all very interesting individuals, and all have fan bases that really are passionate about them.
And it's interesting how diverse the drivers are. They get along, and they enjoy being with each other. Yeah. Which, if the guys that came from Formula One, I know when Formula One came here, I had every pass you could get, except you couldn't get in the garage, you couldn't talk to them, you couldn't get near them. I've
heard that, yeah.
And they had a friend of mine whose company sponsored a car, and I forget the driver's name. I said, "Do you ever see him?" "No." "Do you ever come to any of your meetings?" "No." "You spent $30-40 million and he didn't?" "No." We never even got in the garages. Yeah. Whereas here, they invite you in. They want you. Yeah. You get a sponsor, a series sponsor or a team sponsor, come in and see what we're doing. Yeah. So it's an interesting sport, and I think, in my opinion, in that of a lot of people, you're in a perfect position to do what you do best, and that's build, make things better.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry to hear that you have meetings to go to and you got to go, so we'll cut this short.
Well, that's okay. At least I'm busy, right? At least we're cranking on a lot of different things and a lot of good things. And certainly, one of the things with Indy Lights coming back into the fold in terms of kind of that management of the series, that's created a little bit more, and man, lucky to have Levi join us. Great guy. He's going to be phenomenal running that series, and so excited about that. But it's all good stuff that we're working on.
Well, the only disappointment, and I understand that could be resolved in the next year or two, is they don't have the Freedom 100, because that race for 4 or 5 years is probably the best race in the world.
Yeah.
It was, and people, I got a group of 20 to come every year, and they come at 2 days early just to make sure they got to see the Freedom 100. Now it's not there. They come in just a day early now. Yeah. But I understand that Roger has a concern with the safety of the car, and that's to be changed, I understand, upcoming, and that could change the whole thing. Yeah,
I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think that those cars and the experience level. Indianapolis is a very unique track, right?
Yep.
And it can bite people quickly, and it can separate those that are well prepared and ready to go, and those that maybe aren't. And so, the first and foremost, you always have to think about safety, and you always have to be concerned with safety. And so, I think it's a very exciting race for sure. But at the same time, I think you got to look a little bit at the bigger picture on the safety aspect, and I think that's what Roger's doing. And we'll see.
Well, I understand there is a change coming to the cars in the next couple of years, I believe.
Yeah, I think we just have decided recently. We had a team owner meeting with the team owners and said that the chassis itself will probably remain. We talked about that 5-year plan for IndyCar. Do the same thing for Indy Lights. Will probably remain till 24, 25. And what that does is that allows them to plan, especially a lot of these teams, financially have just now been able to pay those units off and secure them. So I think you'll see this chassis probably for a couple more years then.
Well, I hope I can still see when the Freedom 100 comes back, because it was a great race, a lot of fun, and you think of the times that the race was won. The guy in 4th place going into turn 4 wins the race.
Yes,
by a couple inches.
Times.
I mean, it was really quite exciting. Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely.
I always enjoyed talking to you. Now that I have found that you do get a break every so often for an hour or two, we'll catch up with you again, find out what's new and exciting. In the meantime, tell your boss, Mr. Fry, that I'm going to start looking for him.
Will do.
I would like to talk to him about what's upcoming with the car and that new generation thing that's coming that I don't understand completely, and he can tell me.
Absolutely.
And tell us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. Always enjoy coming and talking to you. It's been great.
My pleasure. Trust me. My guest, the Chief of Staff for the IndyCar Series over all departments, Mr. Mark Sibla. We'll be back. We have other guests in the line to come along, so thanks for being here and watching tonight. We'll be back again. Until the next time, Don Kay saying thank you. See you again.